This is the WrestleBread Podcast, bringing you the latest news, recaps, and analysis of AEW and WWE. Get the unique perspective from a wrestling fan of over 25 years. Here's your host, Jaydee.
What's going on, guys? This is Jaydee here, and this is episode 76 of the WrestleBread Podcast. So this week, the biggest news story, the biggest thing all around wrestling is the WWE Draft that took place last week on Smackdown and somewhat ended on Monday Night Raw. There is a few people who haven't been drafted that I'm sure we're going to hear about this coming week as well. WWE is also setting up for next week's Hell in the Cell and then the Halloween Havoc on Wednesday for NXT as well. AEW is having their anniversary show this week, where they started 1 year ago this month. And we also have Impact gearing up for Bound for Glory as well. So a bit of news starting out. WWE has signed 4 more weeks at the Thunderdome. Or should I say, quote-unquote, Thunderdome. It actually is the Amway Center. There was rumors that WWE was thinking about starting to travel, possibly around the state of Florida and letting fans back in. But it looks like that may not happen for quite a while. So with 4 more weeks at the Thunderdome, they will be having Survivor Series at the Thunderdome this year. Also, a bit of news too. Cody Rhodes had did an interview for app.com where he talked about the past year of AEW Dynamite. He mentioned that he is his own biggest critic, and he mentioned that he felt as though as an executive in the first year of AEW Dynamite, he spoke way too much. And I kind of agree with that. It felt like AEW was pretty much about the Cody and friends. And even though he was the biggest babyface in the company, a lot of attention was put on him. So he said, looking back at Wednesday nights, he said he regretted trying to put labels on his growing promotion. He quoted, "I wanted to really promote the brand. I wanted to pound the pavement, but in speaking, I kind of confined our product. I tried to give an identity to a product when the identity is evolving. Its identity is growing. AEW is going to have a different identity in year 1 than it has in year 2, and we want that identity and that flavor profile to improve. But to say it's one thing would be incorrect because wrestling is something that there's no specific way to do it right. There's many different ways to do it right." He said I spoke too much as an executive in my efforts to promote the brand, and a lot of this kind of clickbait journalism followed in areas where what I said was taken out of context and might have rubbed people the wrong way, or might have created more tension between an NXT fan and an AEW fan. A little less talk from me, a little more action is one of my goals going forward. So I do appreciate the fact that he is, owning up to faults and kind of taking responsibility for, especially the whole AEW versus NXT, especially between the fans, was sometimes it gets kind of ridiculous. So I like the fact that he is, recognizing that there are some faults that has occurred with AEW in the first year. I like both brands. And like I always said, I felt as though AEW was concentrating too much on Cody, the elite. And now it's concentrating a lot more on the wrestlers that are coming over from WWE. And I always said what AEW really needs to do, if they really want to build up their brand, they have to concentrate on their own people, build up the wrestlers that we never heard of, like Darby Allin. Now they're working on Will Hobbs. I felt as though, even though I just said the Cody and Friends, I felt as though for the first title, Jericho may have been the right choice as far as trying to get over on NXT, but to build up your brand and to really get people to know and care about, I felt as though maybe it should have been Adam Page now. I know back then I definitely said that Chris Jericho was the right choice, but looking back in the past year, Chris Jericho did drive the company, but I felt as though AEW could have had that chance to really build up one of their own and kind of build the story from there. MJF is another one too. He's really good at promos. And they also need to work at their women's division. I didn't really see him really mention the women's division, but he always kept mentioning that the brand is growing and that he's willing to grow. And from what my thinking is, I mean, he says all these that he has faults on, but the first day that he comes back from injury not the first day, his first match after injury, he goes up against Brody Lee for the title and actually wins it. So let me talk about AEW Dynamite since I'm on the topic. That's one of the biggest things I had an issue with for AEW last week. I felt as though that Cody Rhodes versus Brody Lee should have definitely been saved for their next pay-per-view, which apparently is going to be in November, Full Gear. Because that type of feud was definitely pay-per-view worthy. You had someone who completely decimated the biggest babyface in the company, took him out on injury, then sat there and destroyed his family, pretty much held the TNT championship kind of hostage, not really doing the open challenges that Cody Rhodes was doing. And I felt as though they could have definitely had built up with Cody Rhodes and Brody Lee. I felt as though them doing this match on the pay-per-view may have been a little too early, especially with Cody Rhodes winning it. I was saying that it's fine for Cody to come back and demand a rematch, but for Brody Lee to say, you know what, get in the back of the line, I defeated you, this, that, and the third, and then just have Cody pretty much not really attack, because I guess that's not really a babyface thing to do, but have Brody Lee put himself in matches against QT Marshall, for example, or Dustin, and just continue to decimate the Nightmare family from there, and have Cody Rhodes come in to do the save. I feel as though that the AEW really cannot afford to put these pay-per-view matches on for free, because their pay-per-views actually cost money. I mean, you're paying $50 for a pay-per-view, and I feel as though for them to try to entice people to pay $50 for these pay-per-view events, you definitely have to bring in very good storylines, matches that people want to see and will want to pay $50 on. So maybe Cody Rhodes and the crew have something up their sleeve, something different for Full Gear. I do appreciate Cody winning. I do appreciate Cody having these open challenges where you get to see different superstars from different promotions that we saw in his first title reign. This upcoming week, he's going up against Orange Cassidy for the TNT title. But I don't know what the end game is as far as him versus Brody Lee. I really hope it's not over, because they really have to continue to build the Dark Order as a group that is not really menacing, but to be taken a little more seriously, I guess I should say. We also had the 30 years of Jericho, a lot of celebrities and wrestlers talking about Jericho past the 30 years. The show ended with him in the ring celebrating after his match. MJF comes out to give Chris Jericho a gift, and he also had a clown underneath. He also had a clown as well. The gift was a picture of MJF. Chris Jericho did the Judas elbow on the clown. He also hit him with the picture as well. And he looked at him and said, "I don't like clowns." And they both started laughing and they both celebrated. And then comes the end credits. It kind of reminded me of Saturday Night Live. The end credits showed Chris Jericho, of course, handling the show, which kind of makes sense, seeing as though he calls himself the Demo God. I also saw that his champagne, now it's sparkling wine, a little bit of the bubbly is back out. So I'm sure people are going to want to get their hands on that bottle as well. So now going into NXT Live, I really didn't get a chance to catch most of NXT Live because I was watching AEW Live, and I was doing something else. I forgot. But I did catch Rich Holland's injury. I really hope that he has a speedy recovery. He was in a match against Oney Larkin, and he attempted to catch Oney Larkin as outside of the ring, and his leg folds underneath. And you can clearly tell there was something wrong. He was screaming in pain. And it says that he has a dislocated and a broken left ankle. Speaking of left ankles. So I really hope that he has a very speedy recovery. And kind of segue, as you know, I'm a Cowboys fan. I am not a Dak Prescott fan. The fact that he got injured, as soon as he went down, as he was running, I was sitting here like, why won't he slide? He rarely slides, and that kind of gets me pissed off. But as soon as I saw him go down and I saw him hold his calf and I saw the way the ankle was twisted, oh man, I'm sitting here like, well, I mean, I didn't really thought it was that much of a season, but any hope of having a good season was definitely over. And as much as I'm not a fan of him, I can't sit here and hate on what he has been doing these past couple of games. I mean, he's been throwing for like 300-400 yards each game and playing catch up, but the whole team is a mess. The whole team is a mess. So now we are hoping for Andy Dalton and to kind of get things together and pull the team to get a win. But my heart broke for him. It really did. He had a very hard year, and he doesn't really get a lot of love from Dallas Cowboys fans. But when he started crying, he had the towel in his mouth, and he started crying because he probably felt as though maybe his career might be over, because he is playing on a franchise tag with the intent of to not re-sign him. That really was what Jerry Jones is going to do. And then people started attacking Jerry Jones, which kind of didn't make any sense, because just a year ago, people were, wondering of who we're gonna draft and all this other stuff, and people were talking. It's a little more Dak haters out there than it was showing up on Twitter. And I'm saying, like, people weren't acting like this back when they were talking about getting him signed. Because, I'm sorry to say, they were trying to get him paid, but Dak Prescott wanted to be the number one, the highest paid wrestler. Highest paid wrestler. Gosh. The highest paid quarterback in the league, which he isn't top 1. He's not top 3. Maybe top 5 if I have to really think about it. I mean, he's definitely in top 10, but I wouldn't say top 1, highest paid quarterback. He's not getting paid no Patrick Mahomes money or anything like that. So, bit of a segue here to some football. But the whole NFC East is a hot mess. More likely 7-9 or 6-10 will win the division in that division. So it's a hot mess. But most of NFL this year is a bit of a hot mess. The 49ers have suffered a bunch of injuries. The Eagles are suffering injuries. Everybody's suffering injuries. Everybody's a hot mess. Washington don't even have a football name. Their name is football team. I feel like it's like high school or something like that. But it's a hot mess. But at least we're getting some type of entertainment from all this between football and WWE. And now I'm going to segue back to WWE. So we had the return of Ember Moon, who teamed up with Rhea Ripley. And they looked good. Of course, both women want to go after the title. We're going to get a sneak peek of who Toni Storm is going to be going after. Well, we know she's going after the title, but how? Dexter Lumis is also coming back as well. Who knows what he's going to do as well. He kind of reminds me of a prototype between Stone Cold Steve Austin, John Cena, and somebody else he reminds me of. I'll think of it probably tomorrow or something like that. NXT was pretty good. Like I said, I didn't really catch too much of it, unfortunately, so I can't do too much of a deep highlight of it. But going into the draft, very interesting picks we had here with the draft. Stephanie McMahon comes out on SmackDown with the first round. The first overall draft pick for Raw was Drew McIntyre, of course. SmackDown then drafts Roman Reigns, of course. Raw drafts Asuka, of course. And then SmackDown drafts Seth Rollins. So, very interesting dynamic here. Before we get to the rest of the draft, I really didn't know what is going to be done with Seth Rollins. At my thought that they were going to break up this storyline between him and Rey Mysterio and the Mysterio family of what is he going to do, you know? And then to round out round one, we had the Hurt Business. All 4 members are drafted at the same time. Please keep this in mind that 4 people in one group was drafted at the same time. And then after that, we had second round, we had AJ Styles going to Raw. So no longer the house that AJ Styles built. I'm not exactly surprised that AJ Styles is going to Raw, seeing as though that Paul Heyman's on SmackDown, and we all heard the stories of how Styles just loves Paul Heyman. But I'm happy that AJ Styles is going to Raw. Definitely going to switch up and get some more interesting matchups on Raw. Felt as though it wasn't really that much more he could have done on SmackDown. I mean, he lost his shot at the Intercontinental Championship. I feel as though I think he is more that he could be doing on Raw. SmackDown is keeping Sasha Banks. Naomi then goes to Raw, which is a very interesting thing that's happening here. So even though they are on both shows are taking place in Florida, if these picks stay the same and they start traveling again, then it's either the Usos are broken up or husband and wife between Naomi and Jimmy Uso would be broken up. But like I said, both shows take place in Florida anyway, so you don't really have to worry about this unless they're keeping the rosters the same once they begin traveling, which probably will happen maybe around the Royal Rumble time. SmackDown now has Bianca Belair, and then Raw has Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. So going into round 3, first overall in round 3 was Ricochet to Raw. And then we had Jey Uso to SmackDown, which makes sense because we need to continue this awesome ass storyline between him and Roman Reigns. Then we have Mandy Rose, who stays on Raw. And then we get Rey and Dominic Mysterio going to SmackDown. So we're continuing this storyline that has been going on for the past, 6 months now between Rey Mysterio and Rey, Dominic, and Seth Rollins as well. I mean, they're trying by adding Aaliyah and Murphy into this. I don't know how much more they can do with the storyline. Like, Dominic Mysterio got his ass beat, I think 4 times now by Seth Rollins. Like, I don't know where the payoff is going to be. I guess the payoff is going to be Murphy versus Seth Rollins and then Murphy winning. But I don't know what's going on with this storyline. And then to round out the third round, we have The Miz and John Morrison drafting to Raw. So then on to the fourth round, we had a very interesting fourth round. We had The New Day going to Raw, and you would think that would involve the 3 people, because normally groups are drafted as a whole, but we have Big E, who will be staying on SmackDown. So the thing that I'm confused about is if Raw was able to get the draft pick first, couldn't they have said we want all 3 members of the New Day? Or did they purposely say, no, we just want Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston? I understand that they're trying to do this whole singles run with Big E, but I think he could have really done it even still being in the New Day. He could have just simply, had more singles matches. But I guess I don't know if they're trying to do this so that you can separate the silliness and, for Big E to be a little more serious. I guess that's why that they split them up. But it don't make sense for them to draft the New Day as just a tag team, where in the first round, the same brand, Raw, drafted 4 people together. I don't know. So I'm guessing they just want Big E to kind of get separated from the laughter and all the silliness and goofiness that the New Day can have. But as we saw on Smackdown, especially when they were going against the Usos, the New Day can be taken seriously. They just don't need to, they still can be taken seriously and kind of still have the goofiness as well. But I guess they want Big E to really be taken seriously, especially, I guess, if they want him to go after the IC title or eventually the WWE Championship. And then in the 4th round, we had Dana Brooke going to Raw. Otis is staying on SmackDown, and then Angel Garza will be staying at Raw. So very interesting that we have just Otis here, even though he's in a tag team. And I said, I wonder why. And then we get this answer in the 5th round. So Humberto Carlito is going to Raw, which I liked the dynamic of the tag team that Dominic and Humberto had, but I guess, that was just a one-off thing, which didn't make much sense to me. We have Murphy going to SmackDown, so it looks like he will be continuing his role in the Mysterio versus Rollins dynamic. We have Drew Gulak on Raw, Kalisto on SmackDown, and then Tucker is going to Raw. So we have another broken up tag team here, which didn't really make too much sense. So to go over things that happened on SmackDown during this day 1 of the draft, we had Bayley versus Sasha Banks, and I didn't think that they were actually going to go through with the match, but they did. And at first I was sitting here like, they're giving away this match for free. This should have been saved for the pay-per-view. Kind of want the 2 women to kind of continue to go after each other without actually having an actual match. But Bayley ended the match kind of quickly in a DQ by grabbing a chair and hitting Sasha Banks with it. Sasha Banks get upset, cuts a promo and says, you want hell? We'll have a match in the Hell in the Cell. So Sasha Banks, I think this is her second one. I think this is her second Hell in the Cell match. I know she definitely went against Charlotte for the first one. So if I'm wrong and this is the 3rd one, then it's just the 3rd one. But Sasha Banks will be going back into the Hell in the Cell, which I'm okay with. But I still don't get why they kind of went through with a whole match. I would have rather had Bayley attack Banks before the bell or something like that. That way you don't really get a taste of the match. You kind of want to build the anticipation of how the 2 women will really interact and be once they get into the ring together. But, maybe they'll pull out something a lot better at this Hell in a Cell match. Lars Sullivan is back. I forgot who he attacked. But he attacked somebody. And I didn't really care for the guy when he first started. I don't really care for him now. Michael Cole was killing me by how many times he said the freak. I'm sure if there was a drinking game out there of how many times he said those words, that person probably would have been dead somewhere, lying in a ditch, for how many shots you had to take for that. We also had another awesome matchup, and I know this was definitely pay-per-view worthy, but I guess there's no way for them to do this on a pay-per-view, especially now that all 3 members in this triple threat match are split up. But we had Seth Rollins, who came out to say goodbye to the Raw brand since he is no longer the Monday Night Messiah. We had Jeff Hardy, who came out because Seth Rollins was saying who is going to step up and be the leader for, take care of Raw and make sure that they're around for the greater good. And Jeff Hardy comes out and says that, I will be the one who take care of the brand while you're gone, Seth. And this, of course, brings out AJ Styles, who then starts talking crap about Jeff Hardy. Oh, he mentioned that asked Jeff Hardy if he lost his way, if he was drunk and got lost or something like that going to the ring. Seth Rollins started laughing. AJ Styles goes, "Oh, you think that's funny, huh?" Yeah. He's like, keep it stepping, okay? He's like, oh, I forgot the line that AJ Styles said, but it was hilarious. Straight up played Seth Rollins because he was like, keep on stepping. We are no longer needed here anyway. It was never Monday Night Rollins anyway. And that got a really good laugh out of me. Seth Rollins sitting there looking stupid like, and he walks back down to AJ Styles like, what are you talking about? What do you mean it's no longer, it wasn't Monday Night Rollins? And then Jeff Hardy attacks both AJ Styles and Seth Rollins, and then we get a triple threat match out of this. And it was a really good triple threat match. AJ Styles, Jeff Hardy, Seth Rollins definitely know how to throw down the ring. And I was sitting here watching it like, this should have definitely been saved for a pay-per-view, but unfortunately, we couldn't. Because Seth Rollins is now on SmackDown, AJ Styles and AJ Styles and Jeff Hardy are on Raw. So, speaking of Raw, oh wait, no, I'm sorry. The triple threat match happened on Raw. I got both days mixed up. The triple threat match happened on Raw. So, speaking of Raw, day 2 of the draft, first one overall, we got The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, which I was a little down about, but I understand that Raw definitely needs something, especially if they were taking away Seth Rollins. I mean, we have Drew Gulak and we have Randy Orton going into this feud, but Raw definitely needs something to shake up, especially the fact that SmackDown has been having 2 of the biggest exciting storylines so far with Bray Wyatt, Alexa Bliss, and the storyline between Roman Reigns and Jey Uso. Raw definitely doesn't have anything exciting unless you are excited about Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton again. So with The Fiend going into Raw, definitely can't wait to see how this all plays out. So The Fiend goes number 1 overall. Then we get Bayley staying at SmackDown. Randy Orton stays on Raw. And then we get the Street Profits going to SmackDown. So the SmackDown champions are on Raw and the Raw champions are on SmackDown. And then, of course, to round out round 1, we have Charlotte Flair on Raw. So the strange dynamic with the champions going on to different brands. There was a segment backstage with the New Day, Adam Pearce, and the Street Profits, and Adam Pearce basically had them switch titles, which means that the Street Profits basically are the SmackDown champions without actually winning the SmackDown championship. And WWE has now mentioned that they are a Triple Crown winner. Okay, even though they didn't really win the SmackDown championship. But WWE has recognized that both teams' title reigns had ended on Monday, and their new title reigns has started on Monday as well. I don't know. I did like the segment of the chemistry between the Street Profits and the New Day. I don't get I get why the Street Profits are going to SmackDown, because it's definitely needed. But truthfully, with WWE's breaking up all these teams, and a lot of people are saying it, and I kind of agree, they just need to get rid of both titles, have just one tag team title, and kind of do what the women are supposed to do, and kind of bounce between both brands defending the championship. Kind of have tag teams fight each other on their respected shows to become the number 1 contender, and have them face the champion at the next pay-per-view. I don't know how hard that is. Apparently WWE hates the tag team division. So for them to have 2 titles, and for them to have 2 times the concentration on the tag team division, it feels like it's too much for them. So I definitely think that they should have 1 tag team title and have all these tag teams fight for each other. And I'm going to go through later on the tag teams that are left in WWE, because they definitely been splitting up a lot of tag teams. So going into round 2, we have Braun Strowman going to Raw, Daniel Bryan on SmackDown, Matt Riddle now comes to Raw. Kevin Owens now goes to SmackDown. And Jeff Hardy on Raw. So it looks like we're going to continue the storyline between Jeff Hardy and AJ Styles. Round 3, number 1 going to Raw was Retribution. Okay. Lars Sullivan going to SmackDown. Keith Lee staying on Raw. King Corbin staying on SmackDown. And Alexa Bliss going to Raw, which means we're going to continue the Harley Quinn-esque character that Hardy Bliss is turning into, and The Fiend as a union. Going into round 4, we had Elias, who had returned. He did pop out after the triple threat match. He attacked Jeff Hardy with a guitar. He later explained that he attacked Jeff Hardy because he was the one that hit him with the car all those months ago when it was actually Sheamus, but I guess we'll get to that portion of the storyline. But it looks like Elias is now back heel. And then we get Sami Zayn, who has been who stays on SmackDown. And I was a little confused because this is a champion. And this champion was drafted in the 4th round after Retribution, Lars Sullivan, and King Corbin. Don't really understand that. Lacey Evans on Raw, Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura stays on SmackDown, and then we get Sheamus on Raw as well. And that rounds out round 4. Round 5, we have Nikki Cross on Raw, Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode on SmackDown, R-Truth on Raw, Apollo Crews now on SmackDown, so now we can stop this goodness gracious, god-awful storyline between him and... I'm lying. I liked the storyline between him and the Hurt Business, but I was hoping that was for him to turn heel because Apollo Crews just needs to take a syringe of personality and a gimmick and stick it into an arm and just get something. Cause I haven't been a fan of Apollo Crews even when he was in NXT because all he did was smile. He's good in the ring. He's talented, yes, but on the main route, like in wrestling period, you kind of need some type of gimmick, something else besides I have a gorgeous smile and I have a nice body and I know how to flip and stuff in the ring. You actually need to have some type of personality, some type of gimmick, like who the hell are you? Like, yes, you can move in a ring, so can Drew Gulak and all these other people. What separates you from them? Like, why do I want to see you in the ring when I can just simply watch someone else who can definitely entertain me a lot better or cut a promo or something? So Apollo Crews to SmackDown. Don't know what they're going to do with him from there. But I was hoping that he would turn heel because he at least gets something. I appreciated that they did it with Cedric Alexander because Cedric Alexander was getting a little bit of stale for me. And when he turned heel, at least he got something, got some type of personality. And then Raw rounds out round 5 with the guy from Raw Underground, Daba Katu. I feel like I said that completely wrong, but he is now been drafted to Raw. Don't know what's going on with Raw Underground. It seems like they put it a bit on a hiatus for right now. I didn't really get a chance to kind of look into the reason why that was decided. But for Daba to be drafted onto Raw, we'll get to see him a little more in the ring. So now going into round 6, we have Titus O'Neil going to Raw, or staying on Raw. I forgot which brand he was in. He hasn't really been, when was the last time he wrestled? I don't even know what brand he was on, truthfully. I know he does a lot of the promotional stuff, a lot of the charity stuff for WWE, but goodness gracious, I don't know where he's been. Carmella stays on SmackDown. Peyton Royce is on Raw, and then Aleister Black to SmackDown. So it looks like we're going to continue this storyline between him and Kevin Owens. Hopefully, I really like Aleister Black, especially his gimmick that he had. I felt as though Aleister Black could have been a 2020 metal type version of The Undertaker, like very mysterious and things like that. And then, Seth Rollins messed up his eye, and now he's wearing a damn patch like a pirate or something. Like a pirate from like the Black Pearl of like Pirates of the Caribbean. But, hopefully this draft or this change would do something. I like the fact that he had the cool. I don't know if I never noticed it before, but when he took off the eye patch or the whatever he had covered, or the headband that he had covering his eye was all black. I didn't know if that he had that this whole time. If he didn't, that's a pretty good, cool take on it. But I'm just hoping that we get rid of the pirate type stuff. And then on round 6, we had Kira Tozawa. So now we get into round 7, and we have Lana going on Raw. We have Natalya on SmackDown, Redrick Moss on Raw, the Riot Squad on SmackDown, and Arturo Ruiz. That name doesn't ring a bell for me. I'm sorry. I feel like I should know this name. Is he from Raw Underground too? Yeah, he's from Raw Underground. Okay, he was in NXT, and he was one of the people from Raw Underground. Got it. So it kind of leaves people who haven't been drafted. For example, Mickie James and Andrade wasn't drafted. The fact that Andrade wasn't drafted is mind-blowing. Zelina wasn't drafted at first, but then they mentioned on Raw Talk that she is staying on Raw. I don't know where Andrade's gonna go. Chad Gable was drafted to SmackDown on Monday, and then the Lucha House Party were drafted to Raw. And so the teams that were split up, of course, the biggest one is the New Day. A lot of people were upset about that. I don't really understand 100%, but my guess is because Big E getting this big push, this big singles run. Heavy Machinery was broken up, and then Lucha House Party was broken up as well, because the Lucha House Party now is only Lince Dorado and Gran Metalik. So to also go over some more things that happened on Raw, we had, first of all, where was Mustafa Ali? They kept promoting the fact that he was going to explain what happened and for Retribution to come out too. If I'm not mistaken, Retribution was nowhere to be found, nor was their leader. So I don't know if he had to come up with his speech that someone, maybe the dog ate the speech that he was going to give or something, but there's no mention of it. And then we had a women's battle royale to close out the show for the number 1 contender for Asuka. Very weird. Asuka was on commentary, and then she ends up backstage watching commentary, and they said that she went backstage to get a closer look at the action. And I'm like, well, how close can you get than sitting ringside at the commentator's table? But I guess we weren't supposed to catch that type of logic, But we had it down to Natalya and Lacey Evans. Earlier in Raw, we had Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke going against Lana and Natalya. Lana, of course, takes the pin, and I was just waiting for the Lana smash to pop up. The Lana squash, I should say. And it happened during the Battle Royale. I thought she was eliminated. Nia Jax gets eliminated by Shayna Baszler. She looks at Shayna Baszler. Shayna Baszler goes like, well, don't know what to tell you. She takes off the TVs on the announcer's table. I see Lana laying on the floor, and I'm like, okay, here goes the weekly table spot that she's going to get on Raw this week. And so, of course, she gets the Samoan drop on the table by Nia Jax. This is probably like the 3rd time she went through the table from Nia Jax. I don't know if they're like, I know this might be a little mean to say, but I don't know if they're trying to get her to get injured, because we all know that Nia Jax can be a bit botchy. So I don't know what their aim is. But I was like, you know what? Sorry for you, Lana. Blame your damn husband for cutting that promo that they did and not thinking that WWE weren't going to be petty about it. So we have down to Natalya and Lacey Evans. Both women were on the apron. Lacey Evans went to do, I think it was a hurricanrana or something like that. And Natalya was able to catch her and was able to knock her down. And all that was left was Natalya until we see Lana get into the ring, knock Natalya off the apron, and then the bell rings, and Natalya and Lacey, oh my gosh, I can't believe it so much. I'm tongue tied. And Lana wins the Battle Royal to get a title shot against Asuka. And I'm sitting here like, well, is this like her redemption, or is this basically setting her up to get completely destroyed by Asuka? And then I was a little confused because I was like, well, this means that the last shot of Raw is Lana winning, until, of course, we had Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton fighting each other into ringside. So that was the last shot. A bit disrespectful, though. We had Drew McIntyre, and during the Women's Battle Royal, they cut to Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton fighting each other, which I was like, this could have definitely happened before the Women's Battle Royal, that, you cut to this so that we can kind of know, okay, they're fighting, so that way when they come out and continue fighting, it will make sense. But for them to cut in the middle of the Battle Royal to that, I felt as though that was a little disrespectful. And then we get, I don't know if the move is called Twisted Union or they are called the Twisted Union, but I'm all for it. So we had Angel Garza versus Andrade in the ring. Zelina Vega was ringside on commentary. We had Angel Garza, who has been cleared to compete, thank goodness. Injury wasn't too bad. He defeats Andrade. Zelina goes into the ring and checks on him. The lights starts to go down. The Fiend is coming. And I was like, oh yeah, get him, Fiend. The lights come out. Then we get of course, the horror screeching noise. And we see Alexa Bliss doing, I don't know, it's the move where she's, the Fiend would hang not upside down, but he will grab the ropes and then hang backwards off the ropes to prepare for his crab walk. And it was Alexa Bliss. And I said, oh, this is such good stuff here. I mean, I'm about to quote our boy Vinnie Mac here. Zelina was looking confused, like what the heck is going on? And the Fiend was behind them. And so the Fiend attacks Andrade. He grabs Andrade. Alexa grabs Zelina. They both are facing each other, and they do the Sister Abigail at the same time. And Alexa Bliss can do a nice little Sister Abigail. And I think that's when Michael Cole mentioned the Twisted Reunion. Really cool. Really cool. Loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. I don't know what is going on with the Fiend and Alexa Bliss. On SmackDown, after the Fiend defeated Kevin Owens, he has that part where the lights go out and he appears at the top of the stage with that horror sound going off. Well, on SmackDown, when that happened, the Fiend appeared at the top of the stage and Alexa Bliss was facing him. And they stared at each other, then they turned to look in the ring at Kevin Owens, and then they turned back at each other. I like it. I don't know where it's going to go from here or how this is going to end up. But if their first feud is them versus Zelina and Andrade, I'm all for it. Someone even mentioned on Twitter, Karrion Kross and Scarlett versus The Fiend and Alexa Bliss. I know that's like a small chance in hell of us getting that and for it to be like billed properly unless it was NXT. But man, that would be a cool dynamic too. So to go a little deeper into Raw, as far as who had the better team, I guess I would say Raw has it because they do have the Fiend now. They still got Keith Lee, which they can still do a little bit more. They got AJ Styles and Jeff Hardy. They have Matt Riddle now and Braun Strowman. They still keep Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre for that matchup. But as far as men's side, Raw definitely has more. Of course, SmackDown still has Roman Reigns, but now they have Seth Rollins. They have Kevin Owens. They keep in Big E. They got Aleister Black. Murphy as well. They got Chad Gable. So there's some storylines that you can definitely create out of there. Of course, they're going to continue with Aleister Black and Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins, the Mysterios, and Murphy as well. And then, of course, the biggest storyline of Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso as well. Who knows how Lars Sullivan is going to get into this. I don't know, maybe his, we can do Big E versus Lars Sullivan type of feud, kind of build up Big E in that way. As far as with women, SmackDown only has 5 women now: Bayley, Sasha Banks, Bianca Belair, Carmella, Natalya, Billie Kay, Tamina, and Zelina Vega. So, of course, it's Bayley versus Sasha Banks. The fact that Natalya is on this side, don't know how that's going to play out, who Carmella is going to go against, if it's her versus Bianca Belair, or even her versus Natalya as well. Whereas though on Raw, we have 8 women: Asuka, Charlotte Flair, Naomi, Alexa Bliss, Lacey Evans, Nikki Cross, Peyton Royce, and Lana. So we have Asuka going against Lana right now. Don't know how Naomi's going to play into this. Of course, we have Alexa Bliss. With Alexa Bliss and The Fiend going on, I guess they're going to continue on this whole storyline of the friendship between Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss. Kind of put an end to that type of storyline. But as far as tag teams now, WWE has a total between both brands of 9 tag teams, with Raw having 5, The New Day, The Hurt Business, The Miz and John Morrison, Retribution, and Lucha House Party, which you really can't, first of all, you can't really count some of these quote-unquote tag teams as a tag team or factions, because you have Retribution, which you don't really count, The Hurt Business, which is going against Retribution, the Lucha House Party kind of is there. And then you have I guess The Miz and John Morrison are going to be going against The New Day, unless they got something else up their sleeve. And then for SmackDown, they only have 4 tag teams, which is the Street Profits, Cesaro, Nakamura, Ziggler, and Rude, and Rey Mysterio and Dominic Mysterio. They're not technically a tag team. I'm reading this off of, shout out to CBS Sports for really breaking all this down. So this is where I'm getting all my info of how many of each side. So they put Rey Mysterio and Dominic Mysterio as a tag team, which you really can't count them. I mean, I guess officially they can be considered a tag team, but I guess you can officially call them a tag team since it's father and son, and one is not far away from the other. So if you take them out, it's actually 3 tag teams, which is still the Street Profits, Cesaro, Nakamura, Dolph Ziggler, and Robert Roode. So I guess we'll have the Street Profits kind of going up against Ziggler and Rude, since we kind of saw that on Raw a little bit. And then as far as women's tag teams, we officially only have 3 women's tag teams left, which is Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax, Mandy Rose, Dana Brooke, and the Riot Squad. So SmackDown only has 1 tag team, and whereas though Raw has 2 tag teams. So kind of sucking there as far as the tag teams go with WWE. But like I said, we still don't have Andrade and Mickie James drafted either. But it is some good storylines that they can kind of get off of there. So like I had said, coming up this week on NXT, they are definitely promoting the returns of Toni Storm, Amber Moon, and Dexter Lumis. So AEW has their anniversary show this week where all titles are on the line. We're going to have Cody Rhodes versus Orange Cassidy for the TNT Championship, FTR versus the Best Friends for the Tag Team Championship, Big Swole versus Hikaru Shida for the Women's Championship, and then of course Jon Moxley versus Lance Archer for the AEW Championship as well. So that's it for the WrestleBread podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Shout out to Julian Rob Bates from the Wrestling Court podcast on AlternativeMinds.com. Keita and Jay from the Keita and Jay Show, Chris from We Talk Next podcast, which is featured on the Keita and Jay Show, Nando and Larry from Half K podcast, Devin and Hafiz from Clark Street Wrestling, and my boys over at Powerbomb Jitsu. So coming up next week, it'll be a 2-episode week because we will be wrapping up what happened with AEW Dynamite, NXT, Raw, and SmackDown, and then it's going to be another show next week with the predictions for Hell in a Cell, and I might even go into Bound for Glory as well. I haven't really been able to catch up full episodes of Impact, so I couldn't really get down too much of what's been going on, but I'll definitely catch up so I can give some predictions for Bound for Glory. Be sure to hop on Twitter and follow me at Jaydee Talks. That's JAYDE Talks, and follow the podcast at Twitter as well. Be sure to follow the podcast on Instagram. I'm going to get it together on Instagram and kind of post a little more often. But if you go on there, it's going to look kind of sad. Sorry. Let me know your thoughts. Leave a review wherever you're listening to this podcast. And until next time, guys, peace.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Check us out at WrestleBread.com and subscribe to WrestleBread on YouTube for more breaking news and Jaydee's opinions.